Hello, hello, welcome to Logic and Reasoning Spectacular Act 1. Yeah, there's two of them, man. Two act, man. That's golden, man. The great deduction. The game is afoot. Cause of death. What the fuck was he eating? Careful observation of the victim reveals to us the events that transpired in this disconsolate room last night. Disconsolate? Disconsolate? This was definitely poison. Form of the mouth of the deceased clearly indicates the use of poison. Next to the victim, he noticed a large dining plate which contains, you'll be observed, one half the size of a bar of soap! Yes! I agree with that! It looks like a piece of soap! A green, humongous piece of soap! Indubitable. Why is this soap set so purposely upon the dish? Like the victim last supper, in fact, yes. It's a fake cake. I think it's a Japanese delicacy. Could be the man was about to eat it? Of course, the folk reveals the answer. Wait, what? Is that actually soup? Oh, I thought it was like some sort of Japanese delicacies that Natsume bring to him, but he died. So this is why Natsume is so worried. Could it be the man who... yeah. But it's a young man aspect was his undoing. Digging up arms in the form of his cutlery, the victim engaged in deadly battle for his life. I think he died almost instantly, yet the struggle against his hunger was in vain, for in the end he couldn't even resist devouring the slippery feast. Slippery? But London's foul soaps besmirched by foul poison. Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the contents of the plate. The soap. The soap. Oh my god. Oh no god. He died by eating a soap. Piece of soap. And ladder about a young man's mouth are two perfectly matched to young. This is so chilling. Because of that was intoxication due to excessive ingestion of foul soap. Yeah. Though personally I have a greater interest in the taste of foul candlelights, of course. Did you actually try that stuff? What reason? Poison from soap ingestion. Suicide or murderer. Because of that, identify, we proceed to Act 2, where we ponder the next question. Was there suicide of murder? The audience will recall that the death occurred during the victim's last supper. Supper! Did the man dine and die alone? His single teacup suggests the answer. Probably. To draw a conclusion on such meager evidence will be foolish, however, certainly. The careful criminal could have absconded with his own cup to cover his track. Well, allow me to leave the vial of doubt, my dear fellow. Indeed, what we reveal sounds, of course, is the broken lock. Well, what? Didn't I already told you? The door was open now, and at the time of the incident, this door was locked. And the sole keys was the victim's pocket. In other words, when the victim consumed the poison, he must have been alone. Alone with his inferior soap once huffed an inferior scent. Inferior scent? Is that a sponge cake? And with that acrid aroma lingering in the air, the victim made his hand in a tragic solitude. So, according to Sherlock's suicide, we can take comfort only that his soul was well cleansed on his way to the hereafter. No possible perpetrator person. Sorry, I'm trying to understand why this case is so related, and I feel like it's something related with a poison. Because all the cases that didn't want to be talked about were related with poison, I feel like. Thus concludes the final act of Sherlock Holmes' great deduction. Something afoot. So, Sato, Gregson? There's just one teeny tiny problem, Mr. Shims. You're disposed to identify just one thing, aren't you, Mr. Naruto? Pray what concern you? Well, no matter how hungry he was, you really think that man will have eaten soap? It's quite apparent that this man had barely a penny to his name. It's a curious thing, but the one so destitute so can suddenly appear quite irresistible appetizing. Yeah, why did it make it so tasty? No, not tasty, like look like food. I always like questions like I visited those soap shops, right? I was like, why it looks like cake? How extraordinary! Why they look like so appetizing and so eatable to my eyes? It's true, I have tried a little soap myself in the past. You eaten it? You mean? My dear fellow, was some time ago. No, my postulation was that it will cleanse my gut. How? And it did? As I write in agony on the floor and split and spilled the contents of my stomach. Yes, I believe it did. I throw up. Yes. The experience taught me a valuable lesson. Soap is quite poisonous. It was an unpleasant taste and leads to great discomfort. In summary, I cannot recommend it. Believe me, I wouldn't eat it if you did. Even if you did. There's something that troubles me as well, actually. Oh, what's that? Oh. It's Mr. Natsume. Couldn't help noticing him shuddering and quivering off the corner of my eye. Almost as if Mr. Shum's deduction touched her nose somehow. No, nonsense. Well, that clenched teeth episode didn't last. I think, judging by Mr. Natsume's reaction, the great detective deduction may need some gentle correction in order to reach the actual truth. Do we have anything on our pockets? Yes, Mr. Shum's observation and deduction are sometimes a little too sharp. He has the tendency to hit the nail on the side of a head and drive it at an obtuse angle. He does that, he falls out to straighten things out. Alright then, let's see what we can do. Yes, we must pick out the keywords in Mr. Shum's quite brilliant deductions, and discreetly exchange them for something that makes a little more sense. If we can do that... Aha! I'm sure we'll arrive at what Mr. Shum's meant to say in the first place. In that case, are you ready for the second performance of the day? Once again, my dear fellows, you continue the light and wonder, let the curtain race. Oh, hello Shum's logic and reasoning spectacular. 8-1. Feet, Naruhodo. Course correction. Hold it, Mr. Shamasas. Okay, gonna smother it in. Oh, speed! Ha. Gonna speed. Speed. I am speed. The fork? Well, you can't deny that a fork implies that a man was eating something or about to eat something. Did he even manage to eat? Yes, that's true. If they were to decide to eat some soap, I should prefer to use a fork than to attempt it with my chopstick. Chopstick. And of course, only half of the bar soap is left on the plate. Half? Half? How big was the bar? But might there not be some other explanation? Something material that proves whether or not the man really ate some soap. Well, he didn't eat any soap. Could be that the man was about to eat it, of course. The fork reveals the answer. Wait, what? The teacup? The other piece of soap! Is that actually soap? Jokes apart, is that actually soap? Look, there's some more soap on the floor here. The chef must really have loved the stuff. Let's not jump to conclusion, Mr. Naruto. Look closer at this soap. You think that it will fit together perfectly with the half bar of the table? What the? How can that be? I think that they are two halves of the same bar that broke apart. So he didn't eat any soap then. Do I simply show this?
Take that!
Ha-ha! Hiya! Could be the man that was about to eat. Of course, the other piece of soap reveals the answer. Haha. Being the other half of the soap of the table, it shows the victim was not eating soap at all. But the obvious, really, for no depths of hunger could drive a man to attempt to eat soaps. if you say so. Even I, with our unquenchable thirst for practical knowledge, took only a single bite. But that begs the question of how the man was poisoned, because there's no sign of any food on the table. Ah, an excellent observation, Mr. Naruhodo, and one of the furnished us with the answer we seek. For London's foul soap is besmirched by foul poison. Aha, now what? The victim's eye was claimed by poison that tainted the contents of the plate. So it's not on the plate. Mr. Sholmes is still pushing the soap argument then. Perhaps he suggested the man lick the soap rather than eat it. What the fuck? Soap a lot is that poison. I don't think I want to be washing my hands with it, or even wash my plate with it. There's no signs of any food in this room at all. Of course, food isn't the only thing that passes people's lips, is it? So, teacup? Wait, what? Fork. Teacup.
Take that!
Must be the teacup. I love breaking screens. The victim's life was claimed by poison that entered the teacup. Indeed, cups have been vassal choice for practicing poison over the centuries. Is that your argument? And it will be appeared that this victim drank every last drop of it. There's no sign of food anywhere in the room. Which leads us to the mutable conclusion. The cause of that was clearly intoxication due to ingestion of poison contained in his teacup. So the question is like, who put the poison into the teacup? So we probably gonna do the opposite. The cause of that identified procedure up to where we ponder the next question. Was he suicide or murderer? The audience will recall that death occurred during the victim's last supper, yeah? Did it mean that I alone, a single teacup, suggests the answer? The Western vessel for infused hot drinks, again, is already featured heavily in our deduction so far. Yes, we can imagine that shortly before his death, Mr. Shakespeare was having a drink of tea. There will be nothing remarkable about that. That troubles me. It's Mr. Nsume's reaction when we heard Mr. Sholmes suggested. There's more to this deduction than it seems. We must closely examine the scene of the crime again. There was some more clue. Ha! There was a more teacup. Examine it. It's another Western! It's a teacup! And this is too empty. Given that he is actually holding this one in his hand, we assume that this is a cup from which Mr. Shakespeare was actually drinking. But if it's that the case, this changes everything. Everything with the dust up to now is turned out in his head. I have a bad feeling about this. I almost don't want to say it. Yeah, I know exactly how you feel. Yeah, me too. Another teacup! Did a man die and die alone? These other teacups suggest the answer. Yes, there were two teacups in this room all along. In other words, it is a strong indication that the victim last supper was nonetheless done with another one. It was a guest present. At the very least, we can say now with certainty that somebody else was here in this room last night, taking tea with the victim. I guess this was Natsume. What are you talking about? Utterly unbelievable, unjustly unreasonable. To draw a conclusion on such meager evidence will be foolish, however, certainly. In which case, what more can we deduce about this possible guest at the table? Well, allow me to lift the veil of doubt, my dear fellow. You mean to say you know who exactly was this room at the time of the victim's death? Indeed, the real answer, of course, is a broken lock. I'm not sure, like, where this deduction is going now. I'm afraid it's too late to go back on the Halcony? Halcony? Or Halcyon? Halcyon? I don't know how you read that. Days of eating too much soap. Well, identified of the guest who was here last night when the victim passed away is something I have very bad feelings about. Well, you can try to ignore your feelings, but we cannot ignore the truth, Mr. Naruhodo. What I found strange, why there was a piece of soap on the table plate? Well, yeah. Suppose now it's time to look around again. A candle! And this thing, empty bottle. It's empty. Empty of liquid but full of air. That makes you think, doesn't it? It makes me think that you are full of hot air. You should be thinking about who else was in the room at the time. But Susato-san's quippy response was clearer than my original riddle. Pile of books! It could be only one guy. There's the glasses there. At first glance, it seemed the only things in this room are makeshift stage and the costumes. Overlooked these 3 books initially. I wonder what they are. Let me see. The title reads: The Picture of Monsieur Lecoul's Canterbury Yearnings and Mill of Gobarieu. They all sound completely familiar, right? Right, I'm sure I've heard of this title before. Could just be incredible coincidence, but they're the exact same 3 books that Mr. Tsue purchased the other day. What? Yes, on the day of the unfortunate incident when Miss Green was stabbed. Soseki had just been to a bookshop and bought them. That's right. Now those 3 titles over here in the room of the victim. Yeah, Mr. Natsume claims he never had been here before. Lies! Well, what does this mean, do you think? Lies! I really don't know what that make of it. Lies! Okay, I'm sorry. Pile of familiar books. That solves everything. Indeed, what reveals the answer, of course, is the pile of familiar books. Quite so, no mere coincidence that there's 3 titles here in this room in the link of the truth. Aha! Ah! Mr. Natsume, you purchased this book 4 days ago at a second-hand bookshop. Coincidence? In that case, you will be able to bring the same 3 titles from your own room, will you not? This very moment. No, never, non-negotiable. You can bring in your own copies here. It proves that these 3 books are in fact yours. Having purchased a book 4 days ago and returned to your lodgings, you were arrested the very next day. You could conceivably have brought the books here on that evening, but you never mentioned that. In other words, you could only have brought these 3 books here to the victim's room. Last night, having returned to your lodging after the trial concluded on the old day. That was very well animated. Whoever had this idea, it was very nice. I love it. Just like, that. Fuck. It shows. I love that. Really great animation. It showed there is only one possible conclusion. The victim died here in his room last night as a result of poison. And the same night, the victim had a visitor, who could only be you. And that visitor was none less than you, Mr. Soseki Natsume. Thus concludes the final act of Sherlock Holmes' great deductions. Soseki Natsume at the scene! Natsume in the scene! Ooh, the paranoia. Deduction complete. Oh guys, by the way, don't isolate yourself too much. He actually increased the paranoia. Not again! Not again! Not again! Not again! Well done, Mr. Natsume. Up here you're going to have to accompany me down to the yard again. But wait! Hold your horses! Yes? Boom. Key. Locked. Entry. Exit. Entirely impossible! He's so flustered he's being even a stranger than normal. What, you thinking that's an alibi? You will have just made a copy. But we live in the same building after all. You had plenty of opportunity, I'm sure. But... Misery me! Sorry, sir. You got your chance to give your side of the story later. Unquote. The facts speak for themselves, Mr. Mustache. You horrible Sherlock Holmes! He really has found himself an arch rival now, hasn't he? Oh, now, no dilly-dally, Dally. Outside, there's a carriage waiting. Welcome to the Mr. Hall, Esquire. I never imagined I'd be in this position again, but you have to help me, please, please, please. I'm innocent. Alright, understand. Well, come to your cell later and talk about it. Oh, one more thing. Oh, yes. My poor little kitty cat. Please give him his breakfast for me. Wagahai. Wagahai! And so, his evil curse here apparently unbroken. Sasaki-san found himself once again the prince suspect in a case of murder. Thanks to the incriminating deduction of the great detective. My dear fellow, the honor belongs to you. Yeah, exactly. We prove it. We prove it. Well, at least that Miss Inspector Gregson is no longer here, so we can examine the crime scene in more detail now. Yes, that's right. And of course, what? Have you forgotten that Inspector mentioned before? It was the landlord, Mr. Garriba, who discovered Miss Sham's Pierre. Mr. John Garriba, yes. Expect we could find him in his visiting room on the top of the floor, as usual. Right, we must remember to go and talk to him later then. Can we examine this? Examine the body or something? Oh, the poor man. So young to die. You suppose he was a very painful death, being poisoned as he was? I don't know. All we can do is hope that he'll be reborn to a better life. Yes, I suppose you're right, I wonder. You think that putting our hands together in a Japanese prayer will help a British soul? Sorry? Make sure I had a reference at the ready for just an occasion as this, actually. This book is entitled The Beginner's Guide to Praying for the Departed the British Way. Wait a minute. I start to reread it now in one moment. I think I solved the case. I'm not gonna spoil it to you. I think I solved the case. I could be wrong. No, I think I'm quite right. There's quite a spine on that book, isn't there? It's terrible, I know. I think I solved the case. That's it? What's it? That's it? It looks like a part of envelope, I think. Yeah, I think you may be right. Perhaps it was turned off when the letter was opened. Is that significant? I suppose. Well, it's a little out of place. Perhaps we look around the room. There's no sign of a letter, of the rest of the envelope. In fact, is there? She's right. And yet here we have a torn off end envelope. It just strikes me as unusual. I agree, we better take this just in case. Just in case. You cannot examine anything else, right? You'll still have the log there. This is some sort of makeshift stage, I think. Isn't it? Where does the audience sit, though, for the night of Shakespearean performance? Actors aspire to the great stage must practice their art, Mr. Naruhodo, with or without an audience. In fact, on a related note, perhaps you should set up a mock bench for the defense in your office. A mock bench? What? How do you get a mock bench? When you could practice your art every single day? You say so? My heart. I think about it, if you promise to don't bad any play, the role of the judge. Well, if that will help you achieve your goal. Did I have to see? Yeah, I guess. I don't see anything eye-catching, may I say. It's dead, it's pretty dead. There's a teacup, we can examine the teacup. Oh, one of the teacups of Mr. Shamsier and his guests drank from last night. But I'm not drinking from them, Mr. Naruhodo. There's a bit of poison inside. I'm not planning drinking any, don't worry, anyway, the cups are both empty. That's true. So, one was Mr. Shamspierre, and the other must be cup that Mr. Natsume was drinking from. But Soseki-san wasn't poisoned, of course. Perhaps he will take these so we can examine them in more detail later. The pair of teacups have been entered into a call record. I don't think there's anything else. We seen from the outside the window is completely bricked up. A vestige of former window tax that Britons had to pay. Britons! What strange things they used to tax in Great Britain. I mean, making people pay for the number of windows they had in a property is extraordinary. Greed. It's heartbreaking to think that the poor having to block out their windows just to avoid an unaffordable tax. Oh, what is it, Mr. Sutter? If you look closely, a number of the bricks are loose. More soap! Oh yes, it looks stolen measure has broken out. A few of them just there. Was it Mr. Shamper? What is Mr. Shamper who did it? Wonder being lodger renting this room. Aren't those like exposed outside? Okay, look at this, Mr. Naruhodo. On the outside there's a little ledge. There's something on it. What? Outside? What? What are you talking about? Ugh, it's so cold outside. You can feel it through this gap. It did snow last night. It'll be cold. But more importantly, what is on the ledge? Oh, there are two snow-covered lamps. Two snow-covered lamps? Oh, small bar soap! Soap? A bar soap doing line up on the ledge of outside the window. Oh, I have no idea. The pair of them look rather charming like that. Still, that is very strange, isn't it? Bar of soap lying up outside the window. I think perhaps we should take one. There are two after all. Oh dear, I suppose we could. Oh, what's this? Look here. This soap is drug. Ah, you see in the middle there? There's a patch that a different color, sort of transparent, but some sort of fancy design, I suppose. Oh, in Great Britain. Looks like a Hinomaru flag of Japan, doesn't it? How wonderful. It's probably a very expensive brand. Expensive? And what is it doing in a ramshackle of old room? Japan. From Japan, it's being exported and branded by Japan. Japanese product. And here we have another disproportionately large machine. This looks like a matter of some kind. And this gas meter, I think. Maybe that is district resident pay for gas as they use it with coins. I see. Yes, now I've pointed it out. I can see that there's as large as here. That looks like it'll take a coin. You mean if you put a coin in there? That's right. That will buy you about 2 hours of gas for lights and heating. So if you were a poor person with no money, you have to sleep in the freezing cold. We already had this discussion. Yes, if you were a scatterbrain with no change because you forgot to exchange your money at the bank. Thank goodness there's no meter in our office. Looks like you're having a good snoop around, huh? Gregson? Inspector Gregson, back so soon! After I threw that little Japanese fella into clink, I went to report this to the investigation division. In 5 minutes' time, this baby will be condoned off by the yard. Oh, I see. Well, we better be leaving then. No, so fast. Poor Mr. Natsume must be feeling very low. Be back in the cell again so soon. I'm sure we should probably go and... The guy is still alive? What's wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Yeah! Oh, brief candle. Life but a walking shadow. A poor player. That's truths and frets his hour upon the stage, and then he's here no more. Now, how sounded the next part? It is a tale told by a needle full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Indeed! Oh, happy day! Why nobody checked on him? Walking Dead? The fella isn't dead at all! What was that nonsense he was saying though? I think, yes, it was from William Shakespeare. So luckily from Act 5, Scene 5. Wow, you have a great memory, Susanna. Shakespeare? Oh, wow. So it was that the victim, Mr. William Shakespeare, came back to life. If the man had indeed been poisoned, it transpired that it hadn't killed him. He was taken by emergency carriage to a nearby hospital for treatment, and Inspector Gregson evicted us from the scene of the crime. Whatever that now was. He's still alive? Oh my god, he's still alive! Whatever do you think will happen now? Good question. What a strange situation for Mr. Natsume, arrested for murder, but the victim comes back to life. I think perhaps the victim was never dead in the first place. It seemed very likely that Mr. Shakespeare did consume poison as we deduced. Or was it an accident, attempted suicide, or attempted murder? And until the truth can be established, I imagine the police will keep Mr. Natsume in custody. I suppose so. Let's hope it doesn't come to anything more than a night in the cell. So, you can see the soap outside. What? Oh, what's this? You can see the soap outside. What's the man doing over there? It looks like he's trying to see into Sasaki-san lodgings. Something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, excuse me? Cool hair, you have a word? Ah! Dash. Ha! Ha! Jojo! He just ran off. I'll show you I've seen that man somewhere. Before, where was it? I do too, but I don't remember. Can we take the soap outside? What? It was outside! The section of the third floor where Mr. and Mr. Gary live and the windows are bricked up. Yes, that's because of the old window tax that was charged on the number of windows on property day. In order to pay less taxes, well, yeah, we got it. But the tax was since been abolished, hasn't it? So the window could be all open up again, surely. Fortunately, it will appear that the residents of this district can afford to pay half the work done. Oh yes, that's our state of affairs. Especially for people like poor Mr. Natsume, who have lived at Okura with a windowless room. Suppose that's the price you pay for living in a very cheap accommodation. It all seemed rather pointless when you put it like that. Oh, is a bicycle outside the garage dump? Lodgings! Reading bicycle is extremely popular all over Great Britain. At the moment, in fact. One seems very walked though, especially the front wheel. Does that make them more of a challenge ride, do you think? No, I'm afraid that maybe the result of a rider's competence. The front wheel to be so badly well done, I'm afraid that rider may have been similarly afflicted. Then there is a good chance that Natsume have been practicing on his bicycle, I think. Oh dear. I think you may be right. We just read it from the that he was basically going out with a bicycle. When I had an accident or something. Here we are again. Here we are again. The eccentric landlord eccentric top floor abode. We are here because Mr. Garden, well, we discovered the incident this morning. Don't forget. Don't forget. Don't forget, guys. Ah, you chaps, see? Yes, good morning, sir. Thank you for your cooperation in court yesterday. It was quite a trial. As much for Mr. Garden as anyone, really. Came straight back here after all that business and the bailing yesterday. It's better to wake up and more bally nonsense this morning. I wonder if you wouldn't mind telling us exactly what happened, Mr. Garudup. Yes, I suppose you'd like to know all about that loss of an actor chop in the ground floor room. They were exactly Inspector Gregson words, weren't they? The teacup is gone. He does look like Dr. House, I don't know why. Must give me a Dr. House vibe, I think because it's the hunch probably. It just might be a real shock for you this morning to hear you discovered what had happened. Oh well, that hopeless actor chap rises at 5 o'clock sharp every morning without fail. But at 5:30 this morning he still hadn't lit the gas. So I went down and knocked on his door, but nobody answered. And that's when you broke into his room by kicking down the door. Well, I called up on a round-looking Japanese chap to do the groundwork, of course. It was a little premature to kick the door down. The man could have just overslept by half an hour. That's very true, Mr. Naruhodo. If 30 minutes oversleeping warranted such behavior, I have to kick your door down every morning. Well, you know, better to be safe than sorry and all that. Just me, or he's avoided our gaze now all of a sudden? All of a sudden, I said that it was a sorry situation indeed that you found on the far side of the door. Are you hiding something for us, sir? The victim's name is Mr. Shakespeare, I believe, is that right? Yes, William Shakespeare took the ground floor room 3 months ago. And, how would you describe him? Unconsolable? In a word, destitute. Of course, destitute. Well, let's face it, the only redeeming feature of that room is that cheap rent. Anyone wanting to live in a place like that is either broke or has a bully screw loose. So hard to choose which category Saseki-san will fall into. Mr. Naruhodo, that's a little rude. He was doing research as well. Research? Into what? Soap? Shakespeare. Of course, Shakespeare. Read a few plays of the old bard myself. You know, Romeo and Hamlet. Yeah, Romeo and Hamlet. A famous, well-known first. Romeo and Hamlet. Of course. What you're talking about? Romeo and Hamlet. Everyone knows about Romeo and Hamlet. It's a forbidden love between two gentlemen and all that. Yes, William Shakespeare in England is most highly regarded a classical playwright and an author. He's known as Sao in Japanese, as you know, and many of his works have already been translated. It's incredible that Shakespeare was shortened to Sao, though someone was too heavy-handed there. Yeah, Sao is a terrible... I will hate it as it's too short. There were a lot of costumes in the victim's room actually, when there. So in Japan they call it Sao. Of course, Mr. Natsume is a scholar of English literature as well. Imagine here Mr. Shakespeare will never have such in common. Wouldn't be completely wrong. Shakespeare's interpretation of this agreement leads to shocking murder. Let's hope it's not that. You're ready. Mr. Naruhodo, really? How rude. Is she like... When it's blue, isn't usually self-taught? It's like you're thinking now. It's not you're saying it, you're just thinking, right? When it's blue, right? It's like, are you reading my mind? So Sato. After Mr. Natsume's trial yesterday, you came straight back here, I believe, didn't you? You noticed anything strange between then and this morning? Well, now it must have been about 6 in the evening by the time I got home. Snow was coming down rather heavily, as I remember, and it was completely dark already. I felt Actor Chabu was out at the time. Mr. Gary noticed there was no light from his room, or something, I suppose. How? From the door? Couldn't summon the energy for anything much, so I just sat in front of the fire up here. It was after 8 before Shamsia got back, and the child was up until past 1 in the morning, I'll have you know. Suppose he meet his end sometime after that. I was asleep by then, so I'm rather in the dark there. Well, thank you. That was very illuminating. Wow, it's strange, but the room looks so much cleaner. Is everything alright, Mrs. Sato? Like everything else. Well, I was thinking a little strange, that's all. Mr. Garba, you were up here in your room at all evening, if we understood correctly? Not a big fan of stairs, not with his blasted leg. Then, how is that you seem to know? The precise movements of your tenants on the ground floor, I mean. Ah! You spy on them? That's a very good point. I can imagine that you could hear noises from the ground floor all the way up here. Does this old man like to spy on his tenants? Is that it? I said, I know that what you're thinking is barely outrage. I'm ex-military, don't you know? Don't go around spying on my tenants, why would I? Beholder. Then you hold, how do you know? Mr. Garrido. It's the gas, woman. The gas tells me everything. Tell the gas? What on earth do you mean, sir? How can the gas tell you anything, let alone everything? Well, as you're probably aware, the gas is supplied to this building by pipes. Yes, he's more or less worked that out. Every room in the building is connected by a single pipe in a gas main outside. The gas company supplies gas to properties via the main. Yes, I understand that now too. Let me see if you can explain. Let's say I was to light a gas lamp up here. What do you suppose will happen? Well, obviously the room will get brighter. Exactly. But at the same time, the lights into all the other rooms of the house will dim for the moment. What? They dim? Why? Perhaps because when you light a gas lamp, it briefly uses more gas than usual. That reduces the amount of gas in the pipe for the other lamps that are connected to it. That might explain why the other lamps dim momentarily. Mightn't it? Mightn't it? Interesting. Yes, of course, because everything is connected to a single supply pipe. Is that supposed to happen then? It's not rather undesirable. Jolly good point. That is, the gas company pipes in these parts are pretty hopeless. Long worn out. And barely got any gas in them to start with. Opposite also true, of course. Extinguishing the lamps up here and they glow bright in the rest of the house. Oh, right, see. So by watching the flickering of the lamps in one room, you can determine what's happening elsewhere. You got it. Of course, because when people come back home in the evening, before they go to sleep at night, what they are guaranteed to do is either light or put out their lamps and fires. Clever. In point of fact, the room on the ground floor and the one above, it is slightly different amount of glass. Watching the lights here closely, I can work out almost exactly what's going on in the whole house. Wow, gosh! Fascinating, Mr. Garrera. Absolutely fascinating. Oh well, nothing to do to it, really. I don't really see what's going on to help us with the case either. All I'd like to know is why Mr. Garrera is so interested, what his tenants are up in the first place. I feel like there's more to it than idle curiosity. Well, we're not as much investigating here as we can, I think. Perhaps we ought to go to the prison and speak with Mr. Natsume again. A good idea. A godly idea. Look at the hopeless Soseki-san. Looky, Mr. Naruhodo. A hopeless guy. Mr. Natsume, have the police finished questioning you now? Welcome to them, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. Yes? What is he? Tell me! Is he a ghost? Is he here to haunt me? Let me guess. You're talking about Mr. Sholmes. He actually called himself a great detective, Mr. Natsume, not a ghost. But his diabolic deduction, none of it is worth. They've left me. Ah! Cursed! I'm cursed, I tell you. Well, that sort of hurts. Credit where the credit's due, Mr. Naruhodo. You were heavily involved in the deduction too. Yes, and moving on, we have some wonderful news. Oh! What? The victim that we all thought was dead has come back to life again! I'm like, he's alive! Like the possibility worst case, you could only be tried for attempted murder! That's great, isn't it, Mr. Natsume? It's terrible! Oh. I'm stuck in this cell, suffering for some silly wrong end of the stick! You did it, didn't you? Confess, you're the killer. Why the mustache? Why the mustache? Imagine being interrogated. Why the mustache? I was like, what the hell? Constant questions. Sorry to hear that. Ah, the selfish shyster. Make up for your mind. Are you dead or alive? If you are going to come back to life, why bother dying? Why bother dying? Wickedly wishy-washy William. Why bother dying if we're coming back to life? It seemed likely that Mr. Shamsia was never actually died in the first place. Nobody checked on him? Ah yes, that might make sense. I'm pleased that he's alive, of course. Our lively debate last night was much fun. We said to think it was our last. Oh. Oops. Oopsie doopsie. Mr. Natsume, does this mean... you did see the victim last night? You mean, Mr. Shamspia, didn't you? I'm not saying another word! I demand to have a lawyer present. What? Who do you think I am? Who do you think I am, you punk? Please, Natsume, you need to hear your side of the story. Oh, why I'm cursed like this? Nobody knows. Converse. What happened? Tell me, Natsume. What do you truly desire? Can you tell us exactly what happened last night, then, Mr. Natsume? There's nothing to tell, but Mr. Naruhodo is quiet. Oh, I didn't read it, sorry. Mr. Natsume is quiet. I'm eternally grateful for helping me with a cursed case yesterday. In the case that was poor Miss Green hospitalized after she ended up with a knife in her back. I'm not gonna... I have a strong feeling. I thought to believe that it was only yesterday. After the trial was over, I dragged my weary back to my lowly lodgings. And as the evening at past 9, it must have been, I visited Mr. Shamsia. So you did go to the victim's room then? 4 days. Kind of interesting. As we fared, you didn't do anything wrong. I never been to his room before. It was the first time. Then, what made you decide to go? I bumped into him when I arrived back at the house. Got chatting and it developed into a discussion. We had to go out, so I bade him farewell. Thanks a bit of what Mr. Garrett said. The victim went out and came back after 8. We met again later in the evening, around 9 or just after, when I took him some nice tea I brewed as a gift. So it was you who brought the tea that had clearly been drunk at the scene then. And I suppose you were discussing the works of Shakespeare, were you? Yes, that's right, exactly right. Romeo and Juliet. Who was the stronger? It was delightful debate. Romeo and Juliet. Who was the stronger? It was delightful debate. What do you mean stronger? Like, you know, fighting match? Romeo and Juliet? Who was the strongest? Juliet, of course! I'm sure. Such a stimulating subject. Shakespeare. Experience subject. And the debate became very heated, so you sleep poisoning Mr. Shamsia here? No, never. Not at all. Team Juliet won, that was me. One left his room. The flamboyant fellow was fighting fetus, where categorically? Of course, Team Juliet. Team Juliet, though. Mr. Natsume, you often say the same thing about yourself, I notice. That you have a cursed existence. I'm sure I've been mentioned this to you before, but I've been here in Great Britain for a year now. The time we have learned that it's no place for me. It can be very trying to live in a foreign land and adapt to the ways of another culture. There are foreigners everywhere I look, and they all stare at me, they all laugh. It's probably because of the mustache. There's this impression again whenever I go out, it makes me scared to leave my room. Which is why I've become a recluse, but even in my room I find no respite from my fears. I move more times than I can remember. Then 1 week ago I moved to Briar Road. Oh, why, I mean? Why do you choose that place? It doesn't seem very comfortable. Because of the rent is cheap. I have so little money, it is spoke to me. The rent? Obviously there's a reason why it's cheap, because the room is cursed. Cursed? Cursed how? Well, we already know this, right? The previous occupant, the man who lived there before I took the room, died. Of course. Oh no. He was only a young man, but one morning he was found dead, and no one could explain why. Surely no one would want to live in a room with a history like that. I didn't. Went to letting agent recommend the place I weathered. But I want books, and books cost money. A horrible history is a small price to pay. Oh, when I realized it would mean I could buy more books, I signed the release like lightning. Brave or blinkerate. But after I moved in, I soon came to realize what I've done. I realized how horrible that room history really was. Gosh, was it really that so awful? How did the room horrible history affect you, Mr. Natsume? What happened? At first, I was just feeling that feeling of beady eyes boring into my back, watching me. Do you think that might just have been your mind playing tricks on you? No. My mind doesn't know any tricks. It was someone else. It's been one long nightmare ever since I was given the keys to the place. A nightmare? You mean having bad dreams, you mean? Bad dreams? All the souls We've died in the room, and I lean me over in my sleep, and he's trying to strangle me. That really is horrifying. And now I come to think of it. It happened again last night too. The very same night that Mr. Shakespeare was writing the agony from the poison in his body. He was on the verge of being suffocated silently by those miserable spirits in my room. I feel like it's just the cat sleeping on your body. You possibly must come out of that room as soon as possible. Yes, you're right, I know, and that's why I'm already searching for the next room with a history to call home. I think perhaps you should try to avoid accommodation with any kind of history at all. Otherwise, I'm scared that yourself may become history. Oh my god. Phew, Susato-san knows how to make that man listen. Of course, Mr. Lord of the Manor is worried about a curse on my room as well. So he's aware of it, Mr. Garrett, yeah? Yes, he knows that if people keep dying there, he'll never be able to rent it out again. Well, that's true. I, for one, wouldn't go near to the place. Perhaps that may explain why the landlord pays so much attention to the gas lamps and his tenants' movement. You mean because he's worried about their well-being? Does seem to have an unusual keen interest in the amount of gas in the pumps. There must be a reason why he keeps such close tabs on the occupant of his let's room. What do you mean he pays so much attention to the gas lamps? Oh dear, no, it's nothing to do with you, Mr. Natsuma. Please forget it, I say anything. Oh no, talking about me behind my back as well. What's important is that Mr. Shams here is in fact dead at all. When you come around, he'll be able to tell us what happened and be able to get you released. Yes, please, I do hope you're right. Excuse me? He died. Inspector Gregson? Gonna help overhearing what you just said, and on that note, I have some good news and some bad news. Oh, which you want first? The bad one? Always, every time. The bad news come first. I hope it's all you have. Hold on to it. That's my guiding principle. Right, well, the good news it is. Oh well, in that case, the good news it is. Sorry, but it's just a lot easier to explain everything that way. Then why do you ask me my preference? So you might have heard the victim, Mr. Shakespeare, was just unconscious. He'd come around now. Yes, saw it happen. Oh, his terrifying glory. He's still being treated by the doctors, but we managed to get the written statement from him already. Oh, is that a waffle, Mr. Natsuma? Oh, thank goodness. He's all over then. Can leave this sombre cell. He's accusing you? Sorry, no. That's not on the cards. What? Why ever not, Inspector? Mr. Shakespeare has implicated someone as being responsible for what happened last night. Implicated someone? Oh dear. You don't mean? I'm sorry to say I do, yes. He pointed a finger at you, Mr. Natsuma. Ah! My sweet poison DD scat it to end my life. That wicked Kai thief, Soseki Natsume. Oh shit. No, so I'm afraid you'll be appearing cold as planned. You'll be wanting to make the necessary preparation. No! Ladies and gentlemen. And so once again, Soseki-san found himself having to take a dock in the old valley. Whether his room was haunted or whether he was just terribly unlucky, he had no choice. The following day I will represent him in court and do my utmost to break the curse that blighted him. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the episode. Hope you enjoy it, hope you love it, hope you find it interesting. I hope you... if you see me shaking, it's because I have pain on my left chest. I was not molesting myself, if it is your concern. And I don't know why. Maybe I'll be dead too. And we're gonna solve my murder together. Yeah. Goodbye. Enjoy and happy dreams.
Objection!